Mic's not working. Nope.
Top floor is empty.
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, this one.
Yep, I can hear you.
Mic check, mic check.
Yep.
Okay.
We are good.
Guys, want to check your mics real quick?
Yeah, they are. Yes,
Hello. Hello.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes.
Delay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay, well, this is Surviving Life's Tribulations, a week before Thanksgiving. Not my favorite week. This Friday is the anniversary of my son who killed himself 3 years ago, this Friday, the 28th. So just to bring up, we are having a blood drive here at the mall from 10 to 2. It's a memorial blood drive in memory of my son. He believed in giving back, and so do I. So does my co-host here, and we're trying to bring that to everybody else, let him give back a little bit. So if you're out shopping, you want to swing by, I just talked to William. We're going to bring a TV and have the Husker game on, and I'm going to make my son's favorite brownies, and the Red Cross is bringing in a little gift for everybody who stops in and donates blood that day. So, you know, we're trying to make everybody welcome, stop in and see the mall. There's not a lot here, but you can go shopping here, you know. So we're trying to bring a little bit of business here. And stop in and see the radio station, you know, check things out, see how things, you know, kind of how we do things. So 10 to 2 on Friday, Black Friday. So I really don't really like the word Black Friday. And they're saying really only 28% of people are going to shop this year on Black Friday.
Well, every Friday for me is a Black Friday, so
Oh, listen
it'll
to
just
you.
be like every other
So
day.
I call it White Friday for me? No, I'm kidding. We can say that we're partners there.
Now, just to clarify, you said brownies, like
Yeah.
his favorite brownies. What does that mean? What
See,
kind?
that's, you know, somebody asked me
I just
that
wanna make
today,
sure.
They're like, are you going to Colorado first? I go, no, they don't have pot in the brownies. You know, when I made it for my basketball players, people did think I put funny stuff in them because all of a sudden they played better. But that's called a chocolate high, not a, you know. So anyway, it is that week, so I'm dealing with it, you know, best I can by trying to stay positive and bring positive. And everybody kind of walking around me real funny, like they don't know what to say. And I totally get that, you know. But I try to say it's okay because, you know, you get the look. I was like, it's okay, I'm okay, you know. You know, even though it's not, but I can't change it. That's kind of my point, you know. Let's bring back the memories, talk about the good things. So, and then also, I want to say thank you to Coach's Place. We kind of started a little group last week where we get some mothers together and we talk about, we all have the thing in common that we all have lost a child. By different ways, we've lost a child. One was her daughter got murdered. My son was suicide. My sister, car crash. All different ways, but still the same thing. You know, we've grown up together, all three of us, but it's kind of a bond that only mothers can really talk about with other mothers. You know, you can go to other support groups, but I think just being a mother to talk to other mothers, you can talk about the feeling it is as a mother. And I know, you know, brother and sister, everybody has the same thing, but a mother, the bond they have with a child is something that you can't explain. And when it's broke, or the link has broke, it's something that I can't put into words. I try to talk to people about it, but it's just an emptiness in your heart that you can only really talk to other mothers about, my opinion. So anyway, if there's any mothers out there, you're welcome to join us. It's going to be this Wednesday, 7 o'clock at Coach's Place again. They've opened their doors to us, and they're great people there. Oh, man, we love them, you know.
I love Coach's Place.
They totally they're a family-oriented place, and that's the kind of place where, you know, you could go to a restaurant in the back room, but it's just not the same as going to a place where you feel like you already have family. So, and that's the way they make me feel, is like I'm family. So I really, truly appreciate them opening their doors to us. So, now since I'm done yakking, I'm going to let my co-host take over here and introduce our guest. And nice seeing you again, sir.
All right, you
we
as well.
We haven't ever made contact this week by phone, have we? We've been trying.
We've been texting. Yeah.
If we didn't have text, we'd be in
I stay
trouble.
busy.
Yeah,
I stay
know,
busy.
So do I, so.
Oh, man. And I forgot to call you on Saturday.
Oh, yes, we did.
Oh,
That's
man.
Okay. It's okay. It's all good. We're here. Hey, we're in here this week, too. It's all good. So.
Yes, decent weather, warm up. But yeah, I'd like to introduce our guests, Joe and Carrie. Can I just call you Stitka?
Yeah.
Instead of
That'll
Carrie
work.
Beach Stitka?
Yeah. That's funny.
So there's some friends of mine who are joining us today because we want to talk about surviving the loss of a loved one. And recently, Carrie's brother, my friend Kevin Beach, passed away. He had a stroke back in March, the beginning of March, and he ended up losing his battle with the things that happened due to the stroke. So wanted to bring them on since 2 weeks ago we spoke about, suicide and kind of staying on that path and trying to overcome things like that, because we know everybody at some point in life will lose someone that they love and care about. And, we like to try to figure out what can we do to empower ourselves and other people to try to get over that hurdle and continue with life. It's never going to be as normal.
Well, I think losing them earlier than we planned to lose them is something too.
Right.
And I think that's why I like having you on here tonight.
Yeah.
When you're older, you expect certain things, but when you have an unexpected thing that comes up, I think it's a different kind of loss.
Yeah. I agree.
So, and I think that's why I'm glad you're here tonight to talk about,
Yeah.
and we try to bring things like that on the show, true stories, so people can relate or maybe learn from your experience. Maybe that'll help somebody. And our whole point here is to try to help somebody.
Yeah.
And we've had some good feedback about that, and I think your story will definitely make that impact also. So welcome. Welcome. So
Thanks for having us.
no problem. So you start where it was your brother.
Yeah. We're really close for siblings, so I know Danelle obviously as a friend too, because whoever was my brother's friend was my friend too. So it's unexpected in the sense that he got in a car accident about 13 years ago. But I think in your mind, when they've gone through things like having, a stroke even in high school, because he had it before, he was actually paralyzed in a car accident when he was 21. And then, he had seizures like the previous Christmas, not this last one, but the one before he had a seizure. So there are things that we would be concerned about, but I think because he was such a fighter and like just who he was, you're like, other people be like, well, weren't you just planning on this? Like even my brother-in-law, I was just kind of like, look at my watch, like the years are going on and, he can't live forever being a quadriplegic.
Right.
But in your mind, because it's your family, you're like, well, no, like I don't see it as he's leaving anytime soon. So when it's something that other people are like, well, you kind of had time to prepare for it. There is no time to prepare.
Right.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine what it would be like to lose someone that you love and care about so much. But until it actually happens, it's not the same. And I think it's hard for people to understand that it's going to always be there. It doesn't go away. No. It doesn't just because you might put a smile on for today or you might have a good moment in life doesn't mean that you still aren't having those bad moments. You might just not show it the same way as other people do.
Right.
And I think as time goes on, and I think we had a discussion about the other day because I've become kind of a different person sometimes over it. And when talking with my husband about it, because I've had my down points, especially now, like you said, because of holidays, that's probably why I'm getting it worse because I get more depressed about it, and it just brings it more to attention that he's no longer here, and you can't change it. But I like how you were talking about how you went to talk to other mothers, because I did go to a group before and talk about it. So they had all different situations of either like losing a daughter or a son or a brother or sister, but it kind of gives you a little bit of insight that you're not alone out there, that other people will have some type of loss at one point.
The thing that I kind of want to really start, and I really don't know if anything's out there, I like to start like a buddy system. Mm-hmm. You know how like AA, you always have a sponsor or like a buddy? When you get where you just want to talk, I just think you need a buddy.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to talk to family members, or maybe, you just feel like you're relying too much on, and I think if you just had somebody that just be the other person on the other end of the line,
Yeah.
to listen,
Yeah.
or to say, because they get it. So I really don't know if there's a group out there, and that's my goal, is to get kind of a buddy thing, you know,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Because, like with my sister, sometimes we can be good for each other, but we can also be bad for each other.
Right.
Right.
Like, where the people are like, well, we're both his sisters, so in a way, we're going through the same thing.
Right.
But then we bring up all of our bad feelings, so then we'll just be sitting there crying, and it's like, is this what he wants? Like, he wants us to be happy, and like, even last night, she knew I was having a rough day, and she texted me, and then she's like, I've been crying lately too. I'm like, do you think it's because of the holidays that we're all whatever? And then like, it's always so funny because of how his character was. She's just like, Kevin would be so mad at us right now. Like, I think he's watching. We need to quit like talking negatively because we know our loved ones do want us to be happy.
Right.
But as much as I'm like, yeah, I know what he wants from us, that's easier.
But you can't
said
control your
than-
feelings.
Yeah,
Right.
it's easier said than done. Just be like, okay, well, I know you want me to be happy, and I know everyone wants me to, you know, just fake it till you make it or do this.
No.
That's not how.
No.
No.
That's not beneficial to anyone.
Yeah.
So,
You know, and you can't keep stuff inside either, because then you take it out on the wrong person.
Yeah.
well, not only that, you keep
Yeah,
that
I take it out.
type of stuff inside.
No,
Ash takes that on me.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you can't, and I can't control it. You know, and like somebody said the other day, you know, boy, you really snapped at me. I go, well, I really wouldn't take it personal right now because I just really, you can't control, you can't turn your feelings on and off. And like I was saying in the meeting the other night, I mean, I'm going through, you know, to me, there's still like a 12-step program. You know, I'm angry right now. I haven't been angry the whole time till a couple months ago. So you're going through different, and you can't help it.
Yeah.
And I tell you, you know, you're going to have to wear thick skin. I'm sorry. You know, and then my youngest son, you know, he kind of looks at me, and I said, I have to talk about him. Like, we went to a movie the other day, and I said, this would totally been his kind of movie, you know. And he said, yeah, that was the only time we ever went to a movie together was, you know, movies like that.
Yeah.
Him and his brother did. The only, you know. So we need to talk about it. People don't, you have to talk about the person we've lost.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough because they're still here.
Yeah.
So what, you know, don't talk, you know, they're gone, but they're still here.
Yeah.
Well, and health-wise, that's not good to keep that type of emotion bottled up.
Right.
I mean,
So
aside
if you're
from
a
exploding
friend
on
or
someone.
a family or a loved one, we need to talk about it.
Right, right.
You know, especially around the holidays. You know, they say this is the worst time of year for, you know, like you said, you're feeling depressed. But talking about it is going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
So help your loved one out, help your friends out by saying, how you doing? You know, we have big shoulders now. We got thicker shoulders
Yeah,
now,
very true.
and we have thicker skin since this happened. You know, and don't walk on eggshells around me. 'Cause
Right.
If anything, you're going to just push me farther away from you.
Well, you try to understand, and you know the best you can. It's like in my situation. I mean, I knew Kevin, but obviously only for a short period of time. But you know, and I try to understand and be there for her. But it's since he wasn't, you know, my brother. And I didn't know him as well. It's hard for me to really actually officially understand. I'll tell her like, oh, you know, I understand, but really I don't.
Well, you know, the cliches. I don't know if that,
Yeah.
you know.
And we've talked about that. We hear him all the time, and
God.
it's he's still
Stop with them.
he's
Like,
you know
he
he's not.
started it yesterday, and then he goes, stop. And he even like acknowledges like,
Right.
I'm not going to say cliche. I'm just here for you if you
Right.
need me
Right.
to be here for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's like, there is no better place. There is no this and that. Like, that doesn't help anybody solve
No.
any issues. Because that's just like, oh, do you just think that puts a Band-Aid on it? Be like, oh, they're out of pain, or they're no longer this. No.
Yeah, you can't call-
They're walking with God.
Yeah, you
know.
can't call him. You can't, you know,
Like,
he's
oh,
not
your
here.
brother's walking again.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, he was perfectly fine when he wasn't walking right next to me, too, and I was happy to love him
Right.
just the way he was.
Right.
So I know he would have wanted to be walking, but I think he also would have wanted to be around his family, too. So,
Well, the thing is, bring up good memories. You know, like you said, you didn't know him that long or that well, but if you bring up a good memory, she can relate to the memory, and that's going to help her.
yeah.
So I believe always taking a negative, turn it into a positive. This is how I started this whole show.
Yeah.
This is how this whole thing, you know, William's known me, we've been friends for over 20 years, and he knew my son, you know, and this is healing to me. it's not going to totally ever be healed.
Yeah.
So, and by thinking that, you're in denial, people. I'm sorry, but you're in denial if you think it's just going to all be better. It's not. But you have to acknowledge it, live it,
And that's why I think just our society is just so about moving on, move forward, don't look back, that no one knows what to say. And so at the beginning it's like they don't know what to say, and then they think if a month's passed, they're like, oh, life's great,
no.
They think it's just done because it's no longer affecting their everyday life.
Right.
They're not going through, so they're like, oh, I'm going to the holidays, I'm going to go to my family's, and we're going to have Thanksgiving dinner, everything's going to be fun. And you're like, this sucks. Like, Thanksgiving's no longer ever the same. Like,
right. And
every single year, my mom and I were just talking about on my way here, because I'm going to be with his family, and she's like, you need to tell him that he needs to give you attention and be there by your side, like, because it's not going to be easy. And we've had every single Thanksgiving with my brother since this year. I never was away from my family for that time, so it's a whole new thing.
Now, see, this was my son's favorite holiday.
No, yeah.
Thanksgiving. He would starve himself, like I said, for like 4 or 5 days. Just to eat so much he'd be sick. I mean, and we were talking about what we wanted to, my youngest one's here, and we're going to actually cook dinner.
Yeah.
So it's like, what do you want? And I said, I don't think I could ever eat green bean casserole without being sick to my stomach again.
Yeah.
Because that was his favorite thing in the world to eat.
Yeah.
And I just... And like I was saying a couple weeks ago, to me this has helped. I don't know if this will help you, but do the things you used to. Visit the place you used to with him. I've gone to the Husker thing. I mean, I've done things that I was like, okay, I'm never doing this again. But I've done it.
Yeah.
Because it does help. Because you feel like you're with them there.
Yeah.
So people, if you did, like I said, I'm not going to do this, but I've done it. I'm not like I make myself, but I do feel better because I have.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'm in denial myself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when people, as I talked about earlier, at some point everyone's going to lose someone that they love. But people who haven't experienced it yet, or maybe it's just been a long time since they have had that emotion, it's kind of foreign to them, so they're not sure. And as far as being able to like empathize and not knowing what to say when it first happens, that sometimes I think creates that space as well, because it's like, I don't know what to say. I don't, and I'm sure, like, I know a couple of people who have lost people recently, and you say, oh, sorry for your loss, or especially now with Facebook and things, you see everyone, 25 people in an hour say, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, we're praying for you, you're in our thoughts. It's like, I don't want to say the same thing that everybody else is saying. Like, I know you've heard it before, and I don't want you to, just wig out and be like, oh, leave me alone.
Yeah.
So, but it's like, what else can you say?
Well, people, you're in people's thoughts.
Yeah.
And I feel
it's easier to help people when you have gone through, because then you're not saying those things. You're like, I know the pain you're going through right now.
Right.
And it's not just going to go away, but you have people there to be there for you, because you're just saying, oh, like you're saying, like, oh, I'll pray for you, I'll do that, which is what we all normally say to people or something.
Right.
But it's just like, let's be real, you're hurting and it sucks, and this isn't going to ever be easy for you.
Well, sometimes I even feel like saying, I know it sucks.
Yeah, and I
and it's something that God, have to really be stupid, and is that, have I turned cold inside because of what has happened? No, I'm real about it. Right, and he knew that. He, like I said, he wrote a letter, and he knew that you're going to take this.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like I'm a beep, but, if you don't want to hear it, then don't ask me, because I'm sorry. I'm not going to mask it, because it does suck.
Yeah.
And you've lost it in a way, like I said, we've all lost different ways.
Yeah.
And it's not just like being elderly or whatever, that your brother got in a car accident and he had, so it's a whole different scenario than the normal, I call it the normal just death. I hate to call it that way, but.
And I think that too, like, sometimes it's hard, like, and this sounds horrible because any loss is a loss. But like you said, when someone's younger or they're taken from you sooner than you expect life expectancy to be, you know,
Right.
and someone's like, man, I lost my 94-year-old grandfather today. That is sad, and it is hard because I lost my grandparents too. I only have one left.
Right.
But it's still not the same, in my opinion, as someone as close as like a sibling or a son
Right.
or, you know, or a dad or
Right.
someone that's in your immediate family that it's different.
Right.
It's just different. It's different than an uncle. It's like, in my opinion,
It
because I've
is.
lost friends, I've lost family members, and I've lost my best friend and family member, and that's 1,000 times worse than any of the other ones almost put together.
Right.
You know, because we were so close because we moved around and that's all we had was our family, was the 5 of us.
Right.
You know, so everything else was like, oh, you know, well, we're moving again, but we got each other, so who cares? So, you know, that's
Well,
why
I
it's
guess-
always foreign to me when people aren't close with their siblings, and I'm like, well, it'd be a lot easier if I wasn't, but then I would regret that I didn't have that awesome relationship with my brother.
Yep.
You know?
It's going to help you go through life, you know.
Yeah.
And like my son was my best friend.
Yeah.
You know, we did pretty much everything together. Mm-hmm. And that's probably what it's harder because I didn't just lose my son. I lost my best friend.
And that's how I feel.
You know, could have been the father of my grandchildren. I mean, I didn't go to his wedding. You know, you hear, you know, all those different things that, you know, like we were talking the other night about would have, could have, should have. Mm-hmm. You know, that's the things that you kind of, once in a while, you're like, wow, you know, if he was here, blah. Sometimes I catch myself still texting, you know, thinking, okay, I'm going to call it. Oops, I can't.
Yeah.
You know, something big or something exciting.
My dad's number is still on my phone. And,
Yeah, so is my son. I mean, you know, and you want to be able to share it. And the things that I can't share is probably the things that bother me the most.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm very fortunate to have my younger son, but I was a single mom with my kids, so it's a whole different bond.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I'm not going to say I totally get it, but I do think we're maybe on the same in an emotional way.
I agree.
Because, you know, my dad died when I was 7. My little brother was my best friend. He died when, you know, I was 21. So, but just, you know, that closeness that people just don't get. You know, and your sister, you know, you guys have different feelings, different childhoods with him.
Yeah.
So, in a way, you can't 110% relate.
Yeah, and that's true. And because when it happened, she was even feeling like, oh, you probably don't think I'm going through as much pain because, like, you and Kevin were closer than we were, you know, and then she'd be feeling guilty about her relationship with him, like, you guys didn't have as much in common, and we had our age difference, and the fact that I was a tomboy and I wanted to be like my brother, like, that's nothing you can control, you know, and it's like, I'm not trying to say that I'm having more pain than you, like,
Right.
you're having pain, it's just, like...
It's in your own way.
Yeah, it's in your own way, and like you're
Right.
saying, it's not, even though we're both his sisters, it's not, you're just saying it's not 100% the exact same because of our relationships
Right.
with each other are still different.
Right.
And I completely get that. I think sometimes, you know, other people feel guilty with things like, well, maybe I should have done this. And I've even done with stupid little things like my brother wanted to wear my NYPD hat. Why didn't I just give it to him? Like, he gives me anything I'd ask for, like, Kevin, can I take his hat? And be like, sure. And then I'm being like the stubborn little sister, like, what? But that's like my favorite.
We were talking about that. We were
And
talking
it's
about
like
this.
stupid stuff that you
The
get
guilt.
upset with yourself. Like, why
Right.
did I even
Yeah.
care? Why wouldn't I just...
The woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Yeah, and
You know.
it's stupid stuff. My mom's like, Carrie, you were a great sister. Your brother loved you. I'm like, I know.
But you know, you got to think back, and to me, that kind of stuff kind of brings a chuckle to me. It's like, man, he would be thinking, Mom, you're just being really out there right now. You know, and then you kind of laugh about it, and then that's them talking to you saying, okay, reality check. You know,
Right.
because like I said, we can't change it. So, and that to me, you know, then you start to got think, but we did do this together. You know, so then you got to always come back to the positive.
Yeah.
If we don't, we're going to drive ourselves crazy.
I think that's just human nature too. I mean, no matter what it is, whether it be a loss of a loved one or just anything in life, we always say that, oh man, if that quarterback wouldn't have thrown that interception, you know, that team would have won. It's always something,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
So
it could have been different.
Yeah.
It could have been a different outcome.
right.
Just like I tell the basketball player, because I work at the YMWA, it's like, referee's not going to change their mind. He's not going to renege on a call he just did.
Yeah.
We're not going to, you know, we can't change something that we can't change.
Yeah.
You know, they're gone. We have to just, you know, like you said, you feel like, okay, let's keep living here. But then there's a part of you that is just not, your heart's not all into it.
Yeah.
And like I said, sometimes I feel like I'm really cold when I say that, but you know.
And sometimes I think you sometimes just get to a point where you're numb from it, that you're like trying to avoid it, because you're like, oh, well, if I just like don't focus on it, maybe it's not real, or it's gonna change, and you're like, okay, well, that's not going to change anything either. Is that really going to help the situation or not? But it's like you just continue just to try to move forward, but it's like you don't want to and you can't.
Right.
At the same time.
Well, it's making us who we are right now. You know, I mean, I could think 4 years ago, you know, I was this way.
Yeah.
You know, and the job I work at, you know, I work in military transit. You know, I always have to walk in whatever mood I'm in, they're in. You know, and they were there when I found out.
Yeah.
You know, they seen my emotions I went through. So people are also feeling it. At the same time, right now, people know, his friends and everything, they all went through it too.
Yeah.
So we got to remember there's also other people that are going through, wow, it's the holidays, we would be doing that, we'd be going out for a beer. You know, so even though we're going through it, other people are also.
Yeah.
So, you know, I totally understand, you know, Steve's friends. And that's why I said this Friday, let's get together and let's talk about the memories. You know, and just, you know, reunite for a couple hours and just talk about it. It's only going to make people feel better, hopefully.
It does. Right. Like when Danelle had something like a get together with our friends shortly after my brother had passed, and I think that it was definitely helpful for me, because then when we're all like reminiscing about times with him, like I was actually able to smile and have a time, because when I'm on my own and think about it, I just get sad and depressed about it, and I'm crying about him more than I am being like, oh my gosh, but this time and this story, you know, and laughing about the things that have happened. So it is beneficial when you're with your friends and talking about them, like you said. Then
yeah, and what I did was, because I knew if you knew Kevin, I mean, I think it would be hard to believe that there was anybody who didn't really care for Kevin. I mean, he just had one of those spirits, I guess. He was just so outgoing. People say I'm outgoing. That guy, man, it puts me to shame. But I knew that so many people were affected by his passing that I just wanted people to be able to get together and talk about it, and like she said, like laugh and just like reminisce and enjoy some of the old stories, and not be sad about it, you know, because like she said as well, he wouldn't have wanted that. Like, he's so upbeat and just.
So that was like my son. We had a celebration of life party.
Yeah.
He didn't want a funeral. You know, he left it all. You know, we talked about it and everything. So we just I had his favorite foods out there, and he said, don't have them horrible sandwiches that people have at funeral.
Yeah.
You know, he knew exactly, you know. So we celebrated his life. We had people get up and talk about, you know, they're still crying and all that. And he didn't want flowers, because he's like, flowers just die and you can't do nothing with them. So we had people donate money, and then I gave out scholarships.
Oh.
So, you know, because that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, so we do have to celebrate their life. You know, people, like my friend, she lost her daughter, be the 15th of December. So they're going to get together, you know, and let off balloons. You know, people like can't. You know, we need to do that.
Yeah.
You know, go visit. Like I go. We put his ashes in Numb. I go out there and sit there, because I feel like there's a part of him out there, even though realistically I know he's not.
Yeah.
But that's where we did put his ashes at. So I do feel like I'm a little closer.
Yeah.
You know, so anytime you can feel closer to him in your own little way, go with it.
Yep.
Because everybody's totally different.
Yep.
So we just can't go by, you know, okay, let's open up the book, here's what we're supposed to do, blah, blah, blah. No, throw the book out, who cares?
Yeah.
Oh, and I remember telling you to just feel, like, however you feel, whatever it is, just feel it. I mean, nobody can tell you how you should be acting. You know, there's no, okay, it's 3 months
Here's
now.
the timeline.
Right.
Yeah. This at this stage, and then you're gonna go through the stage.
Right. No, you just go through each stage at your own pace, and like.
If it just comes out of nowhere, then you just go with it.
Yeah.
Well, a song will set me off.
Huh?
A song will set me off. I'll be driving, and I'll hear a song, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to pull over for a minute.
Oh, well, let me tell you this. So we haven't talked in depth about my dad and his passing, but so I was there. I was the only one there with my dad in the hospital room when it happened. It was like my birthday is September 29th. We went out to dinner. Everything was fine. October 5th, he wasn't feeling well. He had congestive heart failure. So he had gone to Methodist a couple of times, and this time he had ended up going to Bellevue Medical, which I will say, if you have a loved one, don't let them go to Bellevue Medical. He was in the ER, and my mom had called me to ask to go and be with him. You know, at Methodist, they would have him hooked up to like oxygen and like the little finger monitor and like all these EKGs. None of that at Bellevue Medical. None of it. So I assumed, oh, he's not hooked up to any of this stuff. He must be okay, because it had happened before. Oh, he must be all right. So I'm sitting there in the room, and he's got chest pain. He's complaining. They had already given him. They didn't give him morphine. They gave him some old pain med that started with a D. I can't remember the name of it. No, it was something. And I'm thinking, well, man, if the guy even said, I haven't given this to anyone in 7 years. I'm like, well, why are you giving it to my dad if you haven't given it in 7 years? So the guy gives it to him. He leaves, and my dad's still in pain. And I remember it, you know, like it was yesterday. It was the Friday before the Husker Buckeye game. And, you know, we're from Ohio, so I'm saying, hey, man, you got to hurry up and get out of here so we can watch the game tomorrow, you know. The whole time he's complaining about chest pain. So finally he asked me to call. So I call, and they say that they're doing shift change. So I'm like, okay. So then a while later, he's still in pain. So I go out, and I stop the nurse guy who was in the room before. He goes, oh, okay, I'll let him know. And I go back in the room, and this is one of those what ifs, woulda, shoulda, couldas. Yeah. The whole time I'm in there, because I don't think that this is serious, because he's not hooked up to anything, yeah. I'm on my phone. And I go back into the room, and I have my head down, and I'm looking at my phone, and he asked me, what did they say? And I told him, and he repeated it, and then before I knew it, he just fell back on the bed, and that was it. And so, of course, I call the thing, and I tell him, you know, hey, my dad fell back on the bed. So all of a sudden, all these people rush in where nobody was available before. Right. And not to get too far away from what you were talking about, but anything can bring it back. My wife loves Grey's Anatomy, and I remember them pushing on my dad's chest, and they like cracked the rib because they were pushing so hard, and his eyes bulged out. I'll never forget that. And she was watching Grey's Anatomy the other day, and I woke up out of the middle. I just remember like being asleep and it playing in my head again, and just jumping. And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Oh, nothing." And I didn't even tell her. I was just so like just out of it. And the next day I told her, I said, "Sometimes I can't watch that show with you. Like they're in the ER. All these people are doing the stuff that they were doing to my dad. Like it's so anything. It can be anything. Like right. And it's been 2012, so it's been 2 years. It was just 2 years in October. There's no timeline. No timeline. Well,
like I was telling you a couple weeks ago, but my son had killed himself. He shot himself, and I didn't have to look at the body. So I didn't see, what he looked like, which I'm very thankful for Lincoln Police not putting me through that. But the other day I was watching a TV show. All of a sudden this guy puts a gun to his head and blows the back of his head out. Whoa. I relived what happened to my son at that moment. I literally got sick because I'd never seen it. And, sometimes, you're at home and your emotions are down, you're relaxed, and all of a sudden just like, boom. So that has been replaying in my head. And don't you feel like you just want to turn the thoughts out? Mm-hmm. Take some of this, reliving some of this stuff. I just don't want to think about that stuff anymore. But then it's constantly brought back up to you. Yeah. And it's just like, I want to think about the good things. But when you see something like that, you're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And I know probably different things, like I said, songs, just TV shows, movies, any little thing, basically walking down the mall, basketball. That's what we did together. So I work at the Y, so, everything's basketball, but that's what we did together, and that's what we both love, so I still do it.
Yeah. And I went to a counselor one time about it, and because sometimes if I'm laying in bed at times, especially when I'm just an overthinker as it is and used to be an insomniac and stuff like that,
Right.
and there are other times I'll think of the bad parts, of being in the hospice and seeing this happen, and seeing him just slowly get worse and worse, and if we did this differently, if we would have done, and just seeing the person that you love in that, it's difficult. And so then I'm catching myself not being able to sleep and thinking all these horrible things about it and not thinking of those good moments, And the only thing I keep trying to do is the one thing my counselor said is when you start thinking of something, is this hurtful or helpful? Is this helping you at all? And so the second that my mind just starts going to that dark place, I'm okay, if I keep dwelling on this and keep thinking and visualizing, is this helping me at all? No, this is gonna just make me worse off than I already am, and I don't need to get any worse. I need to try to get better in some way. So
see, it's brought
that's the
up
one thing that kind of
anxiety with me. I never really felt like I had anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
And I can visually remember myself having my first anxiety attack when I was flying in the plane when I was going out of town. That, wow, I'm in heaven. So I always loved sitting by the window, and now I can't.
Yeah.
Just looking out there, knowing, so yeah, so you have a little bit of anxiety, and we talked about sometimes you just, need to get some help.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a counselor. She told me I didn't need therapy because I had my anxiety attack. I was like, well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know. And one time I was okay, not saying that they can. I'm not very good at always going back in and trying to listen to things, so that's part of my problem.
I love his.
So.
He's a man that don't have to say nothing. He's just always making his head.
And that is a problem. I know that I'm down. And I start getting negative about everything in life. It's not even I just become different, and it's and I know that sucks too because I'm usually trying to be like how my brother always is and be happy with things, and then it hits and I'm okay, how do I get over it? And so that's helped. The good thing about my brother having the Facebook and him being such a big person to be on Facebook is when I do start having those negative thoughts, I try to go back to his page and read the things that he was always putting out there for people, which was always positive. And I mean, he could have been one of those people who had so much to complain about, and you would not see my brother complain about anything.
Right.
When I was oh, he had been in pain, I'm he's not going to show that because he knows it's going to hurt me. So he's just oh, I'm just have rough shoulder. Okay, Kevin, let me give you a massage. He's not going to say anything every day was a struggle for him or anything like that. So sometimes I catch myself I'll go back to his Facebook page and I'll be crying over the things I see, but then I'll see something positive that'll make me smile and well, yeah, you see, he's trying to tell everyone this and this, and so he want me to be this way, and be happy that you're living because not everyone gets that opportunity.
You feel like there's signs out there that he's sending signs? I never really, I subconsciously maybe, but now seeing the things that happen progressively, what do we have for food? I had a dream about it. What do we do? Blah, blah, blah. And there'd be signs out there, certain things is okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel or have you ever believed in that, or do you now? Or
see, that's what my sister had this thing of thinking, the second he was gone and people are talking about, oh, you'll see these signs, she just, she started worrying, she's we were walking on the beach when I went to Florida right after he had passed for my spring break because I was supposed to go to spring break with my brother, and he had passed the week right before I had a week off of work, which was good because I didn't have to go to work, obviously, and I had the whole week off being with him at the hospital and the hospice. But we're walking the beach, and she's just sitting there thinking I don't feel him in my presence yet. And do you think he's in heaven? Do you think, she was already so distraught of what could be happening of his afterlife just because people talk about them feeling them, and I don't feel anything. What is that? And I'm
well,
I don't know if it comes
yourself.
sudden. Yeah. And I don't know if it comes, I don't know if it's something that comes sudden or if it takes time because you're still going through that grieving that you're so down that you're not looking for anything, I don't know. did it take a while before you felt like you saw
Well, I'll
or
tell you
felt
what-
signs? You know, because then I feel bad when someone else, or like, I remember even Danelle telling me one day, like, he's like, oh, I had a dream about your brother. I'm like, I've been praying for that. I haven't had that, you know, and then he'll have a positive one, and then I'll have one where something bad happens to my brother in my dream. I'm not having those positive things, or I'm like, I'm trying to talk to him, and he's just going away, and I'm like, no, like, I want to tell you good news of what's happening.
Well,
in
the
my
thing
life,
is,
and it's
I
different.
felt, well, the signs,
not
when I
good.
first started believing in them or seeing them was like, I didn't, minute he passed, I knew. You know, we always had that connection. But like, where do I find a funeral home for the cremation? But all of a sudden, you know, the funeral home that he got cremated at was right across from Omaha South, which is the place that we coached basketball together at. So everything was just like, where do I have the service at? You know, and we went into this to the Legion, and they're like, well, we can only have it if they're in the service.
Yeah.
But then this guy says, hey, Steve, make a phone call. Well, that was my son's name. Then all of a sudden they go, yeah, it's okay if you have it here.
Yeah.
So to me, that's signs. I mean, the
Yeah.
name Steve, you know, and just certain things. But you can't look for it. It's just got
It
to
just comes
happen.
and happens.
Right.
Right. You know,
just have
and
to feel
and
it.
he loved airplanes. So, you know, we went to the Legion where the big airplanes off 90th, the big airplane.
Yeah.
It totally made sense that we had it there because when he was little, he grew up loving that airplane, you know, because he always wanted to be a pilot,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah, you can't sit there and be looking for it. It just happens, you know, and maybe something triggers, you know, like, you know, signs, things happen to bring up the negative, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like I cannot not watch a show with a gun.
Yeah.
You know, I never.
Yeah.
And this was weird because even when I had a daycare, I don't believe in any kind of violence, so I never even allowed, you know, water guns in the house. And he killed himself with a gun, which, you know, I was like, well, he knew I hated guns, but the reason he said that he did it because that was the quickest way to go.
Yeah.
Because if he hung himself, the thoughts would be running through his head. So
Yeah.
then so he explained that to me why he used the gun because he knew I hated guns.
Yeah.
You know, so just let your guard down a little bit, and all of a sudden you'll smell a smell that remind you of it.
Yeah.
That's a sign.
Yeah. I think that's my problem, though. I put up walls and everything that goes on with me that I feel like it's probably not happening because I'm not allowing or setting myself.
They're probably happening, like you
a
said. You
little
got
bit.
yourself in a negative mindset that you don't realize it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, because there had to have been music you enjoyed together, you know, a joke or something. Or,
There was one, I remember, though, I just do remember on my bachelorette party, though, I was at a place downtown or whatever, and there was another bachelorette party, and the bride-to-be was in a wheelchair. And I was like, and I like went to talk to her, I was like, oh, congratulations, and da-da-da-da, and I talked to her and like really sweet gal, and just was like, and I was like, okay, you're here with me,
Right.
you
That's
know I'm going to be getting married.
That's
you know,
exactly
this
what
and
it
this,
was.
Because those things, like something like that, I do remember that, and that was like a big thing for me that I'm like, and then I like, of course, started getting a little teary, like, and I don't ever like get teary-eyed with anyone, like, and April's like, I know, it's because you're right. I'm like, it just gives me a little bit of reassurance, you know, that he's closer probably than I think. And
he's giving you a sign that, hey, I'm here with you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well,
Things like that.
And for me, when my dad passed, I just it was unreal.
yeah,
And like for the first couple of days, I was like, man, you know, you just replay every single thing back in your head. And I'm just like, dude, I feel like there's something that like he needed to tell me or something. I went to see a medium. Like I was like, and never would I think that I would have done something like that. But I was like, I got to do something. So that whole not letting people tell you when you should be aware, that was like my thing. I'm like, I don't care what my mom was like. I don't really, no, I'm not into that. I'm like, well, I got to do it for me.
Yeah.
Like I got to go and see. And it was crazy. Like I don't leave anything. I don't say that there's nothing that couldn't happen. So anything's possible, I guess. But the things that she told, when I called and set an appointment, I didn't give her my name, like my full name. I gave her my first name, and that was it. So there was no way for her to get. I didn't give her my dad's name. Didn't say when he died, how he died, anything. When I got there, she knew that I was the only one in the room with him. She knew that it was something with his heart. I mean, there was so much detail that she was telling me, and I'm like, dude, there's no way that you could have known. And the way that it happened, my mom and dad go to work together every day, and like he took a shower, and then after the shower he was feeling bad, and he ended up telling my mom to go ahead and go to work, and he was going to have my aunt take him to the hospital. Well, which makes sense. She wasn't at the hospital. Like, I had to tell my mom when she got to the hospital. I had to call her and tell her, or I had to have my aunt call or something and tell her that she needed to come to the hospital. So my aunt went to go get her. But I was in the room. They didn't let anybody else back in the room, none of, like my wife or my girls, back. And she said that the reason that I was the one that was in the room with him was because he knew that I was the only one who could handle it. My mom would have flipped out if she was in that room.
Yep.
So I don't know what would have happened if my mom was in that room. So I'm like, dude, how does she know all this? So that helped me.
Yeah.
That helped me a lot. And
Steve and I used to, we went to Exarban, I think it was, I don't know what it was, but there's a palm reader there. He's like, oh, just for, giggles, let's go in there and see what she has to say. Well, we were getting ready to go to a basketball tournament out of town. We didn't quite know how we were going to get the money, whatever. Yeah. And she read our palms, and she knew exactly that. And it's like, oh my gosh, Mom, did you tell her that? No, I didn't tell her nothing. I walked in when you did, So, and then every year we'd go to the Nebraska State Fair, and the same lady would be there. Yeah. And we'd always make sure she read our palms. So when you said that, I would have never thought, I would never believe that stuff. Because I'm always like the realist. Yeah. It's got to be there in front of my face for me to really know. And you see this stuff on TV, like where they always said, will tell her something before you get there. No, these people really, I don't know how, but they do know. Yeah. And I haven't went back since because I don't want to know what she would tell me by reading my palm now.
Well, and for us, there were some things that were off. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. She's talking about like animals and squirrels, and I'm like, what? But she did say something about like money or change or something like that, like loose change. And then my mom started finding like dimes and nickels, like after, like actually she had already had some before I went to go see, and I didn't know. She didn't tell me. So when I told her about the dimes, I was like, she was talking about dimes. I don't know what she's talking. I didn't see no dimes. She's like, since they clean, in places where they would clean, she would find like maybe a spot where my dad used to vacuum or something. There'd be like a dime there or something like that. Just crazy.
And you're like, whoop.
Yeah, I'm like, man, okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Some things are unexplainable, but you just got to live with it.
Yeah.
Because you try to break down reasoning for everything, you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you ask somebody, they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
That's true.
Even though they believe it or not. They go, oh yeah, whatever. And being suicide, that's something that just does. We were talking about it doesn't get talked about. But all these kids are doing it now.
Yeah.
And we always hit on social media, which I believe in Facebook and all that, but social media, these kids, they rely on this stuff so much, and and people will get behind the screen and start typing things that they would never say in front of your face.
Very true.
So
You have people living whole lives, never leaving their house through social media.
Yep.
right.
You have people having 3-4 year relationships with people they've never even met.
Right. Over the internet.
I don't have any of the social media. I don't get any of it.
Yeah, I was trying to look for you yesterday. I was like,
You will
man,
never
he's not
find me on
Facebook.
it. You won't find me. It's
Like I said, I always, like your brother, I always try to put positive stuff, and you do too. And I say, if you have nothing, if you're going to put something negative, unfriend me. I will stop following you in a snap.
That's the one thing that's always funny with Kevin. If he puts something up, he'd only put movie quotes. Like a lot of times he's like, oh, that's a good quote. He put it up, but sometimes they were like ones that make it sound like as if he's speaking to himself of being sad and like, but it's just a quote. And so then he'd always be like, Harry, like, so I posted another quote and he'll like read to me and like, he's like, And like all these people think I'm talking about myself. I'm like, don't worry, Kevin, you'll find love one day. He's like, I don't even. It's
See,
not even that.
my son, my
You know?
youngest one, does
So
the
that-
same
once in a
thing.
while, he's like, no, you guys, I'm not looking for anything. It's just a quote from a movie I watched today.
See, my son's a
That's
filmmaker.
what's
My youngest
funny
one's a filmmaker, and he puts quotes whenever he posts or whatever he puts stuff. And I was like, people call me, "Oh my God, is it really?" No, it was a movie.
Yeah.
Think movies when you're reading that stuff.
They were probably just like, Kevin, you're usually so positive. Where did this come
That's
from?
that's totally my son, my youngest one. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's weird. Now see, they're both.
Yeah.
So that's crazy because that's exactly what my youngest one is.
Well, and we've got about 9 minutes left.
Are you
So,
serious?
yep,
Okay.
it went so fast. Well, so one of the things, number one, I want to say again, I was very happy that Joe, you came along because I told her
Doing a lot of head shaking over there.
after we met. Well, no, not
No, I'm
here,
just
but
kidding.
just into her life, because after we had that little party, I was like, man, Joe's a cool dude. Like, I'm glad Carrie has him to like be there and lean on whatever, because that's what you need. Second, we're talking about Kevin. I wanted to talk about the things that Kevin was doing to make differences in other people's lives after his accident happened and would think first.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, Think First is, the first few years he was like trying to figure out his life and stuff, and then was trying to get back to norm. Like, oh, maybe I should go to school, which Kevin was never a school book kind of guy. Like, he was going to use tools and stuff before the accident and everything. So he's like, no. So he's going to Shawnee Mission, like, community college, and he's like, this isn't for me, just because of he's so charismatic, and it's so easy for him to talk to people he doesn't know. Like, eventually KU wanted him, like, when there were new injuries and young spinal cord injuries, it all first just started him going up there and talking with the people who just became, like, paralyzed, so he could kind of, like, there's life after being paralyzed, like, because he's such a positive person. And then eventually they have this program called Think First. So then he ended up getting a job that he could do because he didn't have use of his hands. So it's like he could do a computer job or anything like that, And based on his story and things of him wearing his seatbelt and stuff like that, and the fact of what was going on with the injury and everything, and he would basically go to schools. Like, first it started off with like little places like DMV classes and stuff, like, if you don't do this, if you're not following the laws, this kind of things can happen. But then it got to like a bigger thing to where he started talking at schools all the time, where you talk at elementary schools, high schools, and talking about, the importance of, like with kids, even with like wearing helmets and wearing seat belts, and, like there's things that can happen if you don't do those things. And he's like, yeah, I wore my seatbelt, but I wouldn't be here today, even to have all these years with my family, this and that, if these things weren't happening. And he, there's a friend of his, Cameron, who he only knew for like 9 months. That's what he was talking about, the movie that he posted on Facebook yesterday. Like, he didn't know Cameron very long. I remember the day I was actually going down there, and he's like, I was like, hey, I'm almost in town, He's like, oh, sorry, I have to go up to KU. There's a new injury. It's a young kid. He's like 19. They wanted me to come talk to him or whatever, and I'll be home once I get done. It shouldn't, be super long. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'll just see you back at the house. And now Cameron, has gone on to work with Think First, and they did a whole segment on him that he had on Facebook, and he tagged me in it so I could see it. And there's like, I don't know if it's for a news clip, and they were showing things, and he had a lot to say about Kevin. Like, my best friend, like, I only knew him a few months, but it's him that lets me know that there's life after all this, and the things that I can do, and that hopefully I can continue to help other people and going on. And it's good for me because, Kevin was fun, charismatic, and a little bit of a troublemaker too. So it's like, it's good to see like seriously the change in him and how positive he took something that easily anyone can take negatively or give up on stuff. And that's what the motto is. Like, Cameron the kid, my parents got certain people in the quad squad is what they call them. They like a necklace and stuff, and one of them was like for Kevin, and on the other side it's like never give up, because that was, he's like, you just never give up, you just keep going. That's kind of what Cameron said in his segment. And that's just to see, like, there's so many lives that he was able to seriously touch with through Think First, because when he's speaking to so many kids, and he's such a relatable person. Like when you talk to him, you're like, oh man, I know. Like he had a letter shortly before he had passed of there's a group of high school kids who had heard from him speaking, you know, and they like got in a car accident, but they were all wearing their seatbelts, and there was like some injury, but not as severe as it could have been, and they like wrote him like thanking him for when he came and talked to them. You know what I mean? So it's like it was crazy to see even him in the hospital. How many people? Like I'm not kidding. Like the second day, I'm like, man, I just need a break. There are people in and out of this room. Like I don't even have a second of a moment to even be with my brother because but then I wanted that because I know how Kevin is too, and he's like, oh, people are coming to see me. He probably would have wanted that, you know, because we talked about him. He talked to me sometimes about what he would think the inevitable at some point he's going to pass.
Right.
You know, and he's like, and he'd get down sometimes. He didn't show it often, but, you know, because his whole life before the accident was here. His friends like Danelle and knowing him before being in a wheelchair was here. So the friends and people would get upset, like even his friends in a wheelchair would be like, why are you friends with this person or this person? Like they're kind of sketchy or they might be using you for this. Like they're wanting you for, you know. But Kevin didn't care. He's like, well, if I can help them out or if I can give them a ride somewhere, like what else do I have to, you know? Yep. And that's the difference. Like not everyone's just like, I'll go do that. And even I know it's hard for Cameron, who still talks for things first, because Kevin was the only person who actually drive all the way out to where he's at to visit him and get him out of the house, and people don't really do that, you know. And his other friend who was in a wheelchair, Kyle's having tons of difficulty because, and he's one of the ones that can get more negative about it as opposed to Cameron. And it's hard for him that he goes and speaks and hangs out with my mom like every week. But she's like, yeah, he's still kind of having a hard time. It's hard for him not to have that person around him and the positive part of what they're going through, you know.
Well, and you know,
did you send me a documentary, or you?
This is it right here.
Yeah, you text me.
I was going to give this out before before the end of the show, but I think, right before he passed, they were doing some kind of story on that kid from Rutgers who got paralyzed during the football game, and like they had him in this like bionic suit thing where he was standing up walking, and I was like, Kev, you should get one of these. You could be like RoboCop for Halloween or something, like, you know. And then after that, like I see now that those are kind of like coming in like into play, and like I'm like, man, I just wish that would have happened like 3-4 years ago, so Kevin could have had the opportunity to do that. And you know, everything happens when it happens for a reason. I know, but I just sometimes think I just wish he had the opportunity to like
try something.
you know. But
if he was happy in his life the way he was doing things, he might not have wanted to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because you know, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but if he felt like he made a difference with the way he was doing things, you know, and he was happy in his own skin and his life as he was.
I think he'd be happy in any skin.
Right. But it seems, just by hearing you talk, you know, it brings a smile to your face talking about him. And, you know, you can go through life knowing he did make that kind of impact. You know, and my son brought a smile to everybody. That's what everybody says. He was always, you know, until I looked at the picture of him. But we can go through knowing that your brother and my son did this. So, you know, he didn't go out, you know, he sat in his own apartment, probably, I don't know what he was. You know, I can't say what he was. You know, but the smile that brought to your face talking about him, you can leave this room knowing, to me, that you had a good night talking about it. You know, and that might sound a little far-fetched, but that's the way I leave here every week. You know, knowing, because you can talk about it. You know, we didn't, oh my gosh, you know, break down in tears. You know, it brought smiles. We brought joy and laughter to people. You know, and just by talking about your brother, you did that. So I just want you to leave this room knowing you did that. So.
And before we head out, I do want to give out the website that tells the story about Kevin and how he was, how he went through an accident and whatnot. So that website, if anyone wants to take a look at it, it's just Think First. First is spelled out FIRST.Missouri.edu/speakers/Kevin KEVIN_Beach, BEACH. If you want to find out any more information about Kevin, that'll be a place to go. Or you can just Google Kevin Beach, Think First, Missouri. It'll pop
We'll
up.
put it on our Facebook page too.
Yep, I'll make sure to share that tonight as well. I've already shared the live feed. I tagged you and Kevin and your mom, so that is there. And then I'll also post it after we wrap up tonight, and then later on I'll share that as well for people who didn't get to watch it live and want to go back and check it out.
Yeah, you can go back and check shows from like a year ago, whatever. So,
Any last thing that you want people to know about your brother?
That no matter what tribulations he was going through, he didn't show it, and he was always still thinking of others all the way to the end.
Almost every night when I go to sleep, and my wife probably thinks I'm crazy if she ever hears me, but I always say, "Love you, Dad. Love you, Kevin." Like, you know, so that's my guy. Like, she was supposed to go down and see him. I was supposed to go down and see him like a couple weeks. We had just made plans the Friday before he had his stroke, so it didn't happen. But you know, went down there for a day to see him.
what if, should have, could have.
Yep.
You know.
But yeah.
Anyway,
He knows it was planned.
Any last words, Joe? Nope.
still shaking his head over there.
Not a man of many words.
Everybody have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes. Get fat and happy.
Yeah, you know, just it's time to be a family. You know, always say kind words to people. You never know, it might be the last words they might hear. You know, I totally remember the last conversation my son and I had, and it was a good one, good day we had. So I can go through knowing it was all right. So always be kind to people.
And speaking of her son, make sure if you are in the giving mood, give the gift of life on Friday. Come down to the Crossroads Mall for the blood drive. And what is the time?
10 to 2.
10 to 2. There will be a TV here for you to watch the Husker game, so you won't have to miss the game. So
No
come down,
excuses.
come down and watch. Give some blood. Hey, Nebraska Red, it's blood. Hey, give it.
That's, what they
That's
do
a new
for the
slogan.
TV, right?
All right, see you guys next week.